So is it fair to say that people were more naive 2,000 years ago than today?
Naive in what?
Naive in a way that it was easier to control the populace 2,000 years ago versus today. You think it's easier to control the populace today or 2,000 years ago?
Probably today.
Really? You think that?
You think today versus 2,000 years ago?
Why do you think?
Because I think we're more connected and everybody seems to have a platform on which they can put out their belief or, their thoughts. 2,000 years ago, we didn't have all the technology where everybody could have their own little podcast or show where they could put their thoughts out there. It was a pretty limited way that a message could be put out.
Sure. So doesn't that make it easier to get more of the populace to believe one message 2,000 years ago than today? Possibly, right?
Possibly. Sure.
Okay. So where today, you see the church attendance down, you see, tithing is down, you see all this data that's coming out, right? You go to churches and you're like, okay, they're having a hard time with their argument and messaging. Some churches are growing. LDS Church is growing. There's some, sancts, that are growing. But for the most part, you'll hear a lot of people say church attendance is down. You see that data all over the place. I'm not the one that's talking about this. But going back to it, like I look at my kids. When Melva, who is Mexican, our nanny, she's a Catholic, and I remember watching her the way she would make the kids eat food at night. And I would watch her, and she would say, Tico, you better eat this food because coyotes are coming. Coyotes are coming. And she would look outside the window. Coyotes are outside. And my son would eat the food. Oh, my gosh, coyotes are coming. So I'm sitting, I'm like, what the hell is coyote? Okay. At this point, the only thing I can link coyote to is it sounds like coyote. So is she? But there's no way in the world she's saying the coyotes are going to come and eat my. So I said, Jen, what is coyote? Is coyote what I think it is? She says, yeah, it's coyotes. Okay. I said, so this woman's been telling these kids coyotes are coming a few thousand times. One day these kids are going to be 38 years old, and they're going to be afraid to go back outside in the backyard because they're afraid there's coyotes there. Because when they were kids, somebody told them coyotes are coming, right? So now somebody might say, come on, Patrick, what a ludicrous argument you're making here. But I think there's a way to control the populace through fear, and the way to do that is to convince them that there is such thing as the devil, that he can control you and he can harm you and he can do all these things to you. And then you see people getting scared. And it's so much easier through imagination to control them back then. Maybe not as much today. Maybe it's still effective. I don't know. Now, again, this is the argument I would make years ago. And there was always a different rebuttal to it. I'm curious to know what you say to this when you hear, maybe we have to convince the populace there is the devil and then let their imagination convince them that they are possessed. And sometimes our imagination can take us to some wild places and do some wild things and some crazy things and things that don't exist. What do you say to that?
I would say that, the church's stance on the devil isn't meant to scare people. I mean, the church proposes, but it doesn't impose. I think, to me, it's not about having people live in fear. The focus should be on people living in love, which is basic premise, of the New Testament. God is love. And how do people experience that notion of God? See, I would say that you talk about declining, church attendance, the number of people who believe in God is in decline. For me, it's because people don't have a proper understanding of who God is. If you were to ask people, who is God? What is God? What response would you get?
Creator. They would go ahead.
But I think for the most part, people would come up with a concept of God that's based on fear, the hellfire and brimstone. So I do think a lot of people today, and this is only my opinion, where people have a distorted image of God. And to me, the ministry of exorcism really is trying to help people have a better understanding of who or what God is. So really the focus is not on the devil, and people might be surprised with that response, but it's really about helping people understand who God is and what God wants to do in their life.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.